This conference will now be recorded.
There we go. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the VUG Canada for September 8th. I'm joined today by Razvan, who's going to be walking us through the Microsoft Azure version 4 for Veeam. So I will turn it over to him.
Um, Thank you, Chris. Uh, I am Razvan. I am joining from Europe, usually Romania, right now a little bit Western for a short period of time. I'm glad to see you all here. And let's go straight into the fun part, actually. So for today, we have a few slides and then we have a demo that I hope it will work. I've been debugging it until, half hour ago. And let's see how many laps we can get today out of this, which is not the idea. Okay, just give me a second and we'll be on our way. Alrighty. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes,
I mean,
we
it's
can see
fine.
it.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
So during daytime, I am a technical trainer in EMEA for Veeam. I am training SEs, so I'm an internal trainer. I'm working with our own SEs. Uh, if you have problems with them, you can put the blame on me, and they can blame me because I said bad thing or stupid things. So there is a way for them to get out. And other than that, I like presenting in user groups. I'm a VMUG leader, VMware user group leader, and I'm also helping with Terraform user group in Bucharest. And now I have the honor to present for Veeam user group. And today we're going to look at Veeam Backup for Azure, the latest version, V4, that was released this summer. And we're going to go a little bit over an architecture overview, see how backup and restore are working, and take a look at a diagram about how we can extend to on-premises, and then go to demo. We're not going to focus very much on why we need to make backups, but I'm just going to put this slide here in which you can see that even though if you're going into a public cloud, there is a shared responsibility model between you as a customer, as a client of that public cloud service provider, and the public cloud service provider itself. And you need to take care of the data that you have it in there. So that would be the bottom line. What we brought with Veeam Backup for Azure, Microsoft Azure, is that we're bringing basically a native way of protecting and restoring VMs in Azure and databases. So we're using native Azure mechanisms, and we're integrating all this with our flagship with VBR. Straight to what's new in V4. So when V4 was released, it brought Azure File Backup, support for Azure File Backup. It brought in also an improvement in the dashboards, in the visibility that we are presenting, and you'll see that in a few moments. It has configuration backup now, so we can schedule backups of the backup appliance, the configuration backups for the backup appliance, and we can restore the configuration of using those backups. We have private network deployment support, which means that when we're deploying, for example, we're trying to protect resources and we want to deploy workers in virtual networks that have no access to internet, we can support it. We've been working on worker redesign, so we've improved the types of workers that we are using in order to increase performance, also reduce costs. And we've added a health check for the backup files that are stored in the bucket, in the S3 object storage. When we're looking at the architecture, of Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure. We have basically a few common components, a few major components. We have a backup appliance, and we're using the backup appliance to control the backups, the restore operations, and we are using it. And the backup appliance is basically working directly, communicating directly with the workers over a messaging queue, which is a service called the service bus, Azure Service Bus. On the backup appliance itself, we are running several services like the backup service. We're running a configuration database, the one that we are protecting with the configuration backup. We're running the configuration restore service, the web UI. We'll have an updater service that takes care to update to keep our appliance up to date with the latest patches. And we have also the RESTful API. The service bus itself is a fully managed enterprise message broker with message queues that are using publish subscribe topics and through which the backup appliance is communicating with the workers. So basically it's Azure Service Bus, and it's something that it's a resource, a cloud resource that exists in Azure, and we are using it in our communication. The workers themselves, they are organized in pools because we need to be able to scale out very easily. And they are used to run backup operations, which involve sending data to the repositories. And also we are using those in restore operations. When we're talking about storage, we have in Azure, Microsoft Azure, we have storage accounts, and we use, actually in this situation, we use a storage account for provisioning workers. We provision it automatically. We keep some binaries there, and once we create a VM, we also provision the binaries inside of the workers, and we have a storage account that we're defining where we keep that we'll be using for the backup repositories. We integrate directly with Azure Blob Storage, and for archiving, Azure Blob Archive Storage. So those are the main components of the solution. Now, when I'm going to remove from the diagram the small provisioning storage account, and we're going to start and look at what is happening, how we are using these components in the two processes. First, we look at the backup, and next we look at the restore part. So we have VMs, and the VMs in cloud, they're very distinct. You have a compute resource on one hand, and you have a disk on the other hand. We're going to actually touch the disks, right? And what we're doing when we do a VM backup is we're creating a disk snapshot. That disk snapshot will be made part of the backup chain. We can leave we can have only snapshot-based backups, or we can choose to create an image backup for the VM, in which case what we're doing is we're starting a worker, and we're going to read the data from the snapshot, from that VM, from that disk snapshot directly using a temporary SAS link, and the worker will take the data and push it to the repository in Veeam format this time. So what will happen is we'll have actually two types of restore points for a VM. In the case when we're doing an image level backup, we're going to have on one hand the snapshots, and on the other hand we'll have the standard, let's say, restore points, Veeam restore points. When we're protecting databases in Azure, we can protect Azure SQL databases residing on a SQL server, or we can actually protect SQL managed instances, both of them. We are using in this situation, so if we're using again some Azure native mechanisms, and in this case, the first thing that we'll do is to try to create a copy of the source database. And we can either do that directly on the source production server, or if there is one, if we have defined, we can use a staging server. In either of the situations, what we're doing is basically taking out an archive of the data with a backpack file. This is a standard format that Microsoft Azure uses to export the data from SQL database. We're taking that, we're exporting that data in the backpack file, in this archive file, and then we're reading the data with our worker and sending the data again in Veeam format on the storage. The third thing that we're doing is we're protecting the files, the file shares. In these situations, what we'll be doing, again, we go back to Azure native APIs and calls, and we're creating a snapshot. In addition to that snapshot, what we can do, we can create an index of the files share, and we can look at all the structure and create that index file. And in this situation, the index file will actually be saved directly on the Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure appliance. File indexing, the file indexings will be, you can find them in varlib Veeam, for example. It's a path on the file system of the appliance itself. That's pretty simple. And when we're looking, so in either of the three situations, we'll end up with some backups and some protection. So now we need to look at how we do the restores. As you can see, we still keep the same main components. We still have the same, the same processes that we had before. In this diagram, so we, on one hand, on the right side, we have here the repositories, the blob storage with what we're using with the repositories. And if we had, we will have the snapshots also, the VM snapshot and the file share snapshot. So when we're starting, for example, when we're looking at full Azure VM recovery, we can do it in two ways. We can recover from the snapshot, or we can recover it from the repository, from the blob storage. We can do the recovery in place, or we can do the recovery in another account, or in another with other connected to other virtual network, so in another place, for example. When we restore from the snapshot, that's pretty simple. It's basic API calls to Azure. We're just sending the commands to create the disk and attach that disk, create the VM and attach that disk to the VM. When we are restoring from the S3 repository, we need to bring in the worker, because we need to take the data, read it. What we'll do is we launch the worker in Azure region where the restore VM will reside. We'll create an empty virtual disk, attach it to the worker, read the data from the repository, put it in there, then detach the disk, stop the worker, create the VM, and attach the disk to the VM. And that's it. We've restored basically the VM with all this information. In the case of doing a recovery from for a database, we're taking the data, again, we're launching the worker, we're reading the data from the repository, we're recreating that backpack file, and we're restoring through native APIs that data back to the SQL database. It can be the same database or a new instance to a different server. In the case of, so these are, this was for the VM, the whole VM or the entire VM restore and the database restore. If we want to do some granular restore at the file level, the files that exist in the VM, in this case, we can do file recovery from snapshots, or we can actually do the file recovery from the backups that are on the object storage. And lastly, when we're talking about restoring the file share for Azure file storage, we will, if we have any kind of index, we retrieve that indexes from the VBAZ appliance, from the backup for Microsoft Azure appliance. And then from the snapshot that exists, we'll do the restore of the share in its location or in a new location. So that's
Razvan,
basically the whole process. Yep.
I think we have a question from Gabriel. How long take for the data to be saved, safe and locked?
How long take for the data to be saved? In I think I need more details from Gabriel in this. It depends on if it's a question about how fast does it work. It depends on how you size your workers.
Yeah, how long? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I was curious about the process. How fast is the data being processed up to the end, up to the back end? Is that
Uh,
instantaneously or is
no, no.
like
It depends very much on how much data you have on your source side. It depends on what type of worker sizes you're using. The worker is a virtual machine that is processing the data, and it also has different processing specifications, so different performance, and then it depends on other limitations that are brought in by the cloud itself. Number of calls, data transfer speed on a specific data read speed from a specific disk into a worker, and all those things. So the answer
okay?
is it depends.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. In the case, and this is one of the best use cases. So in the case you want to extend to on-premises, and basically what you want to do is what you're able to do with Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure and the other Veeam Backup for cloud products is to connect either directly the storage, the S3 repository, to VBR on premises, or even better, you can connect the appliance, the cloud appliance, to VBR. And by connecting the cloud appliance to VBR, you also see all the information that is being stored on the repository, but you'll also get the access to the policies that are running inside the appliance themselves. So you can start them, stop them, you can manage those policies. And once you do the connectivities and you bring the two together, you then have several options. You can do backup copy jobs to on-premises backup repositories and get your data from the S3, in our case, from the blob storage, and put it on the on-premises. You can do instant VM recovery. This is working for VMs only, and you can do it on premises. You can do normal recovery, not only instant VM recovery, right? If you have instant VM recovery, then you can migrate the VM and have it recovered on premises. And you can, in the case you're connected to other cloud, do restores to AWS or GCP or to another Azure subscription or region, basically. So once you do this interconnectivity between your native cloud solution, Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure, and your on-premises on-premises VBR, you get the full flavor of moving your data around from whatever cloud you want to where you actually desire to do it. And that's about it for the slide part. And it's time to go to the demo. Do you have any questions on other questions? No, we go to demo. Okay. So for the demo, what's going to happen? This is the demo scenario that we have built in place. It's been deployed in the cloud. The only thing that the thing that we're going to do is we're going to go and configure Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure. What we have here, we have 3 resource groups. Resource groups, and we have one resource group which is publicly accessible. So we have a WordPress VM running inside here. We also have, a file share. and we can connect to the WordPress VM over the internet. Then we have a backup resource group to which we'll also connect over the internet to connect to the VBA appliance from here. Maybe not the best practices, but I did this for simplicity. In this backup in the resource group, we're gonna deploy also our workers, and we have connect the storage account that is giving us access to the blob storage, and we're gonna access that storage account using a private endpoint. And why we're using the private endpoint is because we don't want our traffic to go over the public APIs. We want to keep it inside Microsoft private networks. The last resource group is hosting the Azure SQL database. And this one also has a private endpoint, and we're using that private endpoint to access the database. And because of that, we need to do a peering between our subnets that are hosting the worker and the database, the private endpoint for the database, to be able to access and give it to connect to it and take the data out and put it in S3 storage. So this is the lab setup, and I'm gonna stop this slideshow right now and switch to another screen. Okay, which is also my main screen. And we're gonna share this one. Hopefully everything is here fine. So as I said, the setup that I showed you earlier, well, not that blue, like this, has been deployed. So the first thing we're gonna do is connect to backup appliance, which has been configured with a password and username. As you can see, nothing is at this moment configured. It's a fresh deployment, so we need to accept the licenses. The first thing that we do after we accept agreements, license agreements.
Razvan, just
Yes.
1 second, because I think Joe cannot see the demo. Oh, okay.
You don't see
Yeah,
my shared
yeah.
screen?
Some people see it, some people don't.
Some people see it, some people don't. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you see it, Joe?
Oh,
Yeah,
do you see it now?
Pete can see it. Gabrielle can see it. I can.
I can see it, yeah. Maybe some ad blockers or whatever.
I
Yeah.
just switched from one sharing screen to another. I can stop the sharing and do it again. I'm stopping
Oh,
it.
Joe, he just said he could see it now. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, great.
So I'll share again, and now we should see. Everybody should see the screen with Veeam
Yes, I can
Backup for
see it.
Microsoft Azure.
Maybe it
Okay,
takes a bit of
so
a time.
that's possible. Yeah, it's delays over the Atlantic Ocean. So the first thing we do is to add an account. We have several types of accounts. We have compute accounts, which is this Azure account. We can create separate repository accounts that we will be using to access, and we give a permission only to the storage account in this situation, and they can only have access to that storage account. So we do a separation. And then we have here other accounts in the case that you're authenticated to the SQL database using a username and a password, which we'll do in our demo. We'll need to add an account here. And finally, the portal users. The portal user has been added automatically during the deployment. So let's add the Azure account that we'll be using only one Azure account. It can be, basically, it can be a service account that exists already, or you can let Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure to create that account. We have our service account created, so we'll be using that service account. We're just taking the data. This is a lab environment that I'm using, so please don't be scared because everything is here. This environment will be automatically destroyed after we finish the session. So it's a again, it's a lab environment that is used for creating and spawning labs on demand, and they have a limited lifetime. So we're not breaking any any rules, security rules. So I've just added here the details, the service principal ID, password, and the tenant ID for the service account. And we'll be using this one also has access to our storage account for the repository. What I'll be doing, I'll be creating here the SQL account. Height. It's a SQL account with a username and a password, and I've decided to name our user VimDBA, and I gave it password. We can save it here. Next, we're gonna define the workers, and in the workers, we have something but we have the profile, so we can define which type of worker to use in which region. We also have here the slider that allows us to enable deployment in private networks, which I didn't really want to press, but because I don't have a private network. Let's go and do the setup here. We are deploying in West Europe. We are going to be deploying in the backup. The workers will be deployed in the backup virtual network. There is one subnet there that we're using, and we're attaching a network security group to it, which will allow us to connect on port 4 for free. In case you have your backup appliance securely, accessing it securely, not over internet like I'm doing right now, but for example, from a jump server that already exists in Azure, then, and you have access to those workers through internal networks, you can select here not to assign a public IP to the workers when you're running file level recovery. So you're restricting your footprint. In my case, I'll be using the public IP addressing. Fortunately, this will just stay like that. Okay, let's look very quickly at the profiles for the workers. So basically selecting, we don't need to do it, but you're selecting what type of instance to run in a separate region. What I'll do here, I'll just change the worker size, and this is good to know. Maybe you want to make it smaller, maybe you want to make it bigger. You don't need to do changes unless you have a very precise use case. My use case is my lab environment is being restricted, so I cannot use standard F2 images. I need to use standard A2. So I'll change it if I want anything to be working. A2 V2. In case you want to give it more power, but be careful because this will mean more, it will incur more costs in Azure. You can change it here to a bigger VM. Also here you define how big is the pool of workers. So it will be minimum 1 worker and maximum 5. We'll keep it to minimum 1. It's fine. For archive operations, so the first, this one is for backup and restore operations, and this is used for archive operations. We're not going to do archive operations today, but yeah, why not? Let's keep it like this. And we've defined a profile which is attached to our region, West Europe, where we have the lab. And here we can see what worker instances are being spawn up in the pool, and in our case it started already deploying because we said we want one minimal instance in the pool. Worker instance is just deployed here. Okay, disabling private network deployment, and meanwhile going to repository. So this is the first thing that you need to do: account, worker, repositories, and then we're ready to start the backups. We're adding the repository. We are using the account here. If you have a different account for accessing your storage account, you can use that one. We don't, so we'll just use the same one. We specify the storage account. The storage account, the whole infrastructure that I showed you here has been again deployed behind the scenes. Why are you doing this to me? So everything that is a part of Azure has been already deployed, so that's why I'm just going and selecting. If you haven't done that, you'll just need to create a storage account and assign what type of redundancy you want and what access tier. Once you create a storage account, you can have access to your containers, where basically it's just one here, and you can name a folder. We will go for the tier for the storage tier as being hot. You can at this stage decide if you encrypt or not your repository, and you can encrypt it using either a password or, which is way better, using Azure Key Vault encryption. I don't have Azure Key Vault. I'm not going to encrypt the repository for the moment. And well, I'm pretty much done with configuring, with preparing the appliance for backups. That was, well, without me talking so much, it's a couple of minutes. Otherwise, it's pretty fast. It's creating the repository, and everything is a success. So now we can go and start creating our policies. We know we have VM to backup, we have the database, and we also have some Azure files. So let's start and do some backups. Backup blog site. Oh, by the way, I haven't showed you the blog. It's here. So it's a Hello World, a very, very important critical VM that hosts the Hello World WordPress site. So I gave it a name, then I'm selecting Azure ID in this situation. Maybe we have multiple IDs, we have only one. It's this one. Region, where we have the resources, we can have one or multiple regions. It's enough one region. It will be complicated with multiple regions anyway. And the resources to protect. We can protect based on tags, on virtual machine names, on resource groups, or on subscription level. So depending on what granularity level we want, we can do either of these. We have only one VM, so we'll do it like this. Select just the VM and add it to protected list. Apply. You could exclude things like VMs. So if you selected a resource group, maybe you don't want all the VMs to be there, to be protected, and you exclude it here. This is the part where you can decide if you go for guest processing or not, if you want to do application or processing, or if you have any scripts that you'd like to execute in the guest operating system. And this is the use case where you need to do some, let's say when you want to do some application consistent snapshot. We're not going to do it in the demo, so you just leave it like this. The targets, we're going to enable backups, and for the snapshots, as I said, they'll be anyway created. And if whether we want to copy the tags, if we're using tags, I'm not using any tags. The retention for the backups, we have daily retention for the backups and the snapshots, and you can see here by default it just filled up snapshots every hour and one backup at 10 p.m. Well, maybe we don't want to do it. Okay, maybe we just want to do it. We want to do a backup at 9 p.m. and that's about it. How many snapshots to keep, how many days to keep the backups, and where to put the backups, on which repository, which is VBAZ repo. Don't have another one. This is the daily retention. You can go and select when you can do weekly, monthly, and yearly retention if you need to. The settings, if you want to enable the health checks that I told you about, when to run the health checks. And these health checks are run on the repository and directly for the data that we have in Veeam format, and how many times to retry. We are given a cost estimation. So based on all the information that's been put in, VBAZ goes to the APIs, gets in billing information, and it offers this estimate, which can or may or may not be accurate. And that's the whole policy. It's done. So we're going to execute backups every day. We don't want to wait until 9 p.m., so we just start the backup. And while this is running, you can see here that it's started automatically the snapshot policy and the backup policy. First creates the snapshot, then takes the snapshot and creates the backup. Snapshot was pretty fast. Yeah, it will just start collecting data. We're gonna go and create the other two policies. What's super cool about it is they look similar. The flow is similar. So just select the AD, the regions, West Europe, and the resources that we want to protect. The thing that changes is that right now we're looking at databases or SQL servers, not VMs anymore. Okay, cool. So we're going to protect this database. Again, we can exclude things. Processing options is a bit different. We need to tell it how to process. It needs to connect to the database server to create that backup file. So we're going to see if we have a staging server. I don't have, so we're going to process the database in the production server, and we're going to use the credentials that I put in earlier. That's a SQL account that I created at the beginning of the session. So I just told VBA how, well, the worker actually, I told it how to connect to the SQL database, which credentials to use, and yeah, that's about it. Schedule looks again almost the same, but we don't have snapshots, we just have backups now. Keep it for 14 days, and we need to select the repository. Settings, same settings we try, and cost estimation, not available, not working. Okay, don't know why, it's a demo. And we have the policy now. And again, we're gonna execute it. Meanwhile, we just go back from time to time and check. Did it do anything? It's just processing data, crunching data there. The last thing, we have an Azure file. Let's see. File share backup. Create a policy for this one. And guess what? It looks similar with the other things. We choose the Azure account, then we choose the region. We select the resources to protect. And it seems that I didn't create the, oh, I have it. Okay. We have the file share here. Oof. You can, again, exclude resources. We cannot do file indexing because, oh, by the way, the demo that you're seeing is being run using the free edition of Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure. So this is supported by, it offers you 10 instances license. So you can do everything here without any license acquired. However, if you want to do file indexing, file share indexing, you would need a paid version of it. You need to bring your own license. It's, let's say, an enterprise feature. Schedule. When do we want the snapshots to be created? This time we have only snapshots. And how many to keep? Well, okay, that was fun. That's a small one. We don't need other retentions. Some cost estimation, very cheap, I know why, and finish it. This will be very fast, instantaneously fast, because the snapshot and there is not much data on that file share. And in the next 8 minutes, I configured 3 backup policies for virtual machines, databases, and file shares, and I started running them. And well, we're still running them, which will answer also Gabriel's question. But don't forget, I changed the default size. I downsized my worker. So this is not a performance test. That's about it for this. What we can do is, again, you can look in the session logs and see at which step you are. You can log into the portal, but there's not much to see there, just one VM running. What we can do and go back to the configuration a bit and maybe, oh yeah, why not? First, we can look at the workers and look at the instances, and we see this guy is busy here, and we're creating another one. I suppose we're doing this for the database, possible. We'll see. So this guy is busy, and we can look at the configuration backup. Heard some noises in my... We're running out of time?
No, sorry, that was my phone ringing.
Ah, no worries. I thought it was the GoToMeeting that was telling me that I should hurry up.
No.
Okay.
Well, there's a suggestion for you in the chat. It'd be nice if for the workers it could automatically populate the region for you.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be nice indeed.
Yeah.
I'll take that. So here you configure you do the backup. So so far we had snapshot-based backup, so we're just creating auto snapshotting the VBA, but that's not optimal. So we create now configuration backup. Now there is one reason that this may not work, and I think it's because I have no repository with encryption, and if I'm not wrong, yes, it doesn't allow me to do configuration backup if there is no encryption on the repository, which I didn't do it. If we have time, I can add another, I should be able to add another repository, enable encryption, and also do the backups. So this is, I just wanted to show you where you do the configuration backup. You can also from here, you can change the certificate. It uses by default the self-signed certificate. This is the reason it's so red here. If you have a trusted CA signed certificate, you can replace it from here. Email notifications, time zones, and well, yeah, we can use integrate with some identity providers. Okay. And there is another thing for the account, for the portal user. You can enable on your portal user multi-factor authentication. The caveat here is this would be the portal user that you are using to connect, so it's good to have multi-factor authentication. But in the future, if you want to actually connect to VBR, the appliance, you'd probably need to create another user for that connection, because at the moment we can't do it with MFA enabled on the user. And doing the MFA part, it's really simple. You just click enable, you scan it with your, I don't know, Google authenticator, and that's about it. I think I stalled enough by now. Yeah, we'll go back. I will go now look at the dashboards. And in the dashboards, these are new dashboards in V4. You can see very fast what happened in the last 24 hours, right? What task had succeeded, what if you had anything running, you had failed sessions, backup snapshots, which protected workloads we have, right? How much we use on the storage. So our VMs, it's using 949 megabytes, which makes me very happy. And we have also 2 snapshots. And we have here to the right side a bottleneck detector, and it shows us that, so it tries and sees if our workers are optimally configured, if we have enough CPU, the backup appliance, for example. And if we get into storage account throttling, which will tie back to the question from Gabriel about how fast it is. Well, it can be very, very fast if you size it up, and then you'll hit the storage account throttling at Azure level. So you need to go around that by adding other storage accounts, for example. So this is the new and really nice dashboard. Our resources.
And probably don't pick a worker in a different region that's way far away from you, right?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, you should you should keep it in the same region if you don't want to go to send the traffic between regions and get more issues with performance and costs. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Policies. So the policies are ready. It was my lazy one. We have the backups now for everything. You can see here in the protected data. And we should be able to look very fast. Let's see if my workflow still works here. I'm just gonna browse very fast through this. And hopefully I get to the level where, yes, some script here should delete my WordPress VM. Let's see if it worked. Oh, no, it didn't delete it. Well, I tried to destroy it and it did not work this time. Yeah, it's still alive. So we can, I mean, it's again, it's very easy to configure it. It's very easy to create the policies, and it's pretty much easy to do the restores. And when you do the VM restore, you can choose your restore point, be it a snapshot or a backup. Let's go for the backup. Then you can select which account to do the restore. Again, we have only one, so that's our default. And then in the restore mode, if we go to the original location or to a new location. And since we still have the VM live in the original location, yeah, it's live. We'll go to a different location now. I haven't prepared anything, but it's just going to be the same region, but you can change your region now. So it's going to be West Europe. As for the settings, you can do here some changes in the size of the, for example, you can change the size of the VM that you're restoring, or you can change the different availability zone. It's up to you. And what we go for the disks. Yeah. I should be able to change the resource group. My bad. Let me put it in another resource group. Let's put it in the resource group where the backup is also, so it doesn't overlap too much. A disk, maybe we want to rename it, don't want to rename it. The network to which to connect. And because we are in another resource group, we should actually use the backup virtual network. We don't have any more. Yeah, we chose the backup resource group here. So we're using the backup networks, which I just, yeah, subnet backup. Thank you for keeping that. Yeah, we cannot recover the IP because I'm in different network, in different resource groups, but I can still do the recovery. And that's it, I'm just starting it. VM restore, it's going on. As I explained at the beginning, it will read data with the worker from the blob storage, creates a disk, attaches the disk to the worker, puts the data in there, detaches the disk, shuts down the worker, creates the VM in the new region, creates the attaches the disk there. This we can see.
Razvan, just to let you know,
Yes.
we have 4 minutes to go, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty much done with the demo. So if we have any questions or any special requirements, the whole idea is, I mean, it took me like what, 25 minutes or half hour max, let's say, since I started configuring the appliance and I protected the database and the VM, the file storage, and now I'm doing some restores already. So it's pretty simple. That was the idea behind the story tonight. So yeah, again, if you have, sorry for putting you all the time on the screen. If you have questions, yeah, feel free if you want to see anything else.
I have a question. Can VBR communicate in any way with the Azure appliance, Veeam Azure appliance, or the workers, or you just able to read the content from a storage account?
VBR can come
Like the on-prem VBR?
Yeah. VBR on-prem, from on-prem VBR, you can do some start and stop of the policies. So all the policies that we see here, you'll see them listed in VBR, and you have the possibility to start and stop them. Other than that, VBR will just read, the data from from this.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, one question. It's me again, Gabriel. So, for example, if you have workers working in a region and that region goes down, is it possible to configure to do two backups in two separate regions, or of course with the costs associated? But yeah, I'm just asking.
Trying to understand the scenario here. Well, you could actually configure across the region. But you need to have access also. You need to be able to, the workers should be able to access the APIs in the region that you want. You have this source and you want to protect it. So maybe we can take this offline and you can explain me exactly the scenario. But yeah, in theory, it's possible.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome. You can have different VBAs put in different places, so yeah, depends also. Restore is completed. Meanwhile, you can also log in, as I said, to AWS portal. I'm sorry, Azure portal. Yeah, Freudian slips. Where are my resource groups? So these are the resource groups created earlier here in our backup resource group. I should see my web VM. And yes, it does have a public IP. And this is the blog from the restored VM. Please work. And this is the other one. And since these were different public IPs, we have 253.229 here, and we have 18.151 here. Well, all 3 bytes are different between the 2 VMs. So this is basically the restored VM, which was given automatically another public IP, and yeah, and connected to the same resource group, to the same subnet where the backup resides. Right, so that's all from my side. Thank you so much for watching me. Thank you for the questions also.
It was definitely very informative, that's for sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Razvan. And thank you, everyone, for joining.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
I'm going to stop recording now.
Yeah, I'm gonna